Today we're driving the 2021 Acura TLX. Now, this is Acura's second entry into their next generation of vehicles. First was the RDX that we drove a couple years ago, and I actually really liked that. It's kind of their bread and butter crossover SUV, and this is going to be their bread and butter sedan. It kind of straddles the mid-size and luxury sedan segments. Today we're driving the advanced package. It has a 2-liter VTEC turbo that makes 272 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque. That's mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission, and of course it has Acura's 4th generation of super handling all-wheel drive. It's pretty good upon first impressions. This is just kind of my first few minutes in the car. I wanted to take you guys along for the drive, and as you can see, there are some implementations here carried on from the Acura RDX. We have this fantastic touchpad that kind of controls the screen. Wherever it's one-to-one direct, so wherever you put your finger, that's where it selects on the screen. It's really useful for quick selections. It takes a few minutes to get used to, but once you do, it's a fantastic system. And that goes into saying that this car overall has some of the best ergonomics, and it's the easiest to use of all the luxury sedans that we've tested this year. And I think that's really important. Acura has nailed the usability of this. They've really gotten it right between this touchpad, the placement of the volume and track selection knobs, the transmission, the gear selector. You have a dynamic mode selector, kind of like the NSX right here, where you can change between sport, normal, and comfort modes. This has adaptive suspension and kind of changes the engine note, the transmission engine tuning, lots of different parameters based on what drive mode you're on. And if you push the button in, you can set it to an individual mode. But besides, we'll get into the driving dynamics on this later, and they're really good. But besides all of that stuff, the usability, the combination of physical touch buttons with minimal need to go into the display and screens to operate tasks is a fantastic balance that Acura has done a really nice job with here. So let's walk you around this thing. There's a whole new design. This is a completely new platform for the TLX for 2021. It doesn't share any parts anymore with the Accord, which is pretty impressive. This thing looks fantastic. It's lower, it's wider, it's a lot sleeker. They've done a lot with the proportions. It's kind of difficult to see in this white, but some of the lines here are really quite evocative. It's a lot stiffer. I think it looks pretty sharp. It's definitely a departure for Acura from the kind of Accord roots that it's always had. And I really like that they've invested in making this kind of a unique vehicle in their lineup. We've got these really wide hips here. We're also going to be driving an A-Spec later today, and that'll probably be in blue or red, so we'll be able to get to see the proportions better. But in this advanced package, you get some great luxury features. The ELS Studio 3D audio system. We'll do a little test of that in a minute. Really nice surfacing. All the materials that look like metal are metal. They look like wood. They are wood. The cabin is airy, light. You have great visibility. The leather even smells quite nice in here. All the materials look great. They feel nice. It's just kind of that next step above their previous generation, and this feels very modern, very comfortable. Get a little tiny reverse camera there. You can see the lines that shift when you turn the wheel. All right, enough blabbing. Let's take this thing on the road and get into our Apple CarPlay here. This has a variable ratio steering rack, so at low speeds, it's very low effort, and the rack quickens up its ratio so that you don't have to turn the wheel as much for your 90-degree turns or your parking lot maneuvers. If you didn't really know that it's there, you wouldn't notice it as much. It's well done, it's nicely calibrated. you can hear, there's kind of a unique sound from that 2-liter turbo. I quite like it for a 4-cylinder turbo. It sounds great. We're in sport mode now. Radar guided cruise control works really quite well. Lane keep assist, this is their next generation. It'll come to a complete stop. All you have to do is tap the accelerator to keep going again. Keeps you very nicely centered in your lanes. It's a very good system overall. In just the few minutes that I've been using it. Let's put us into sport transmission mode and sport mode, and we'll see what it does around a corner here. Put super handling all-wheel drive to the test. These are not performance tires, so they're going to be a little bit noisier. Of course, once you put your throttle down in this TLX, you really start to see that SH all-wheel drive come into play. That's really where you notice it is out of a 90-degree turn. Let's see how it does with the paddles. Definitely not performance tires, but I can feel that the dynamics are here. On throttle, there's a lot of rotation here. It feels quite nice. Acura's done quite a bit of work to stiffen this chassis, make it a little bit more exciting to drive, more of an emotional experience. And that's something that's very difficult to do these days. And I think they've achieved something that's it's quite nice. It feels like a special car. The ride quality is really good. It feels like a more sophisticated old school sedan that I think back in the day manufacturers put way more effort into their suspension tuning and their technology behind ride quality and ride handling balance. And in recent years, we've seen that fall off a little bit. This TLX is a step in the right direction for that. It has a double wishbone front suspension, which makes a huge difference in handling and ride quality, and you feel it. It's really nice. The adjustable dampers also, there's quite a bit of difference between different drive modes. Comfort can be a little bit floaty. Normal is a nice balance. And in sport mode, it's actually quite livable overall too, which is quite nice. The steering sharpens up a little bit. The front end in this is pretty direct. Let's talk about this 10-speed. 10 speeds are either great or they miss the mark. This is a good one. It holds gears, it utilizes this 2-liter turbo's torque. It knows that I'm going around a corner here, so it keeps the revs high, ready to shoot me out. The gear spacing isn't ridiculously close. And when you're downshifting on the highway, just driving normally, it actually acts very predictably. And it's great. No complaints about this 10-speed auto. I would like a little bit more response from the paddle shifters, but again, this is not the sporty version of the TLX. It does the job. There will be a Type S coming out in the spring that is probably going to be something pretty special for Acura. They've put a lot of development into making that quite an exciting driving experience, though we don't know anything about it yet other than it's coming, and it's going to be a little bit pricier, but probably a pretty awesome offering into the market with a 3-liter twin-turbo V6. So gone is the previous V6 engine, and they've replaced that with a 2-liter turbo. You know, this has more torque. It has a slightly more linear and beefier power band in the usable rev range, in the mid-range. And the V6 did, you don't have to ring it out as much. And I think it sounds pretty decent for what it is. I kind of wish the Civic Type R sounded this good. Just getting into this car and driving it in the first 20-30 minutes here, everything feels really well thought out, and it's a cohesive package that just works. this TLX is a great example of why to buy a sedan, and a sporty sedan, over a crossover, an SUV. And they've really exaggerated those reasons in this TLX. The big one is the performance and the way this thing feels on the road. You get a lower, wider stance here. You feel like you're in something that's just a little bit more sporty and special instead of an SUV with slightly more body roll and a more muted driving experience. This is sharper. The ride quality is better than what it would be like in a comparable crossover SUV. And there's just more capability. You get a little bit better fuel efficiency too. This is rated at 31 miles to the gallon on the highway and the low 20s in the city. You should average about 25 mpg in the combined cycle. I really don't have a lot of complaints about this. This is a really good direction for Acura. I think they've nailed a lot of things here. It's not the most exciting car to drive, but it's not boring. And I think there's enough athleticism here to excite a car enthusiast, and enough luxury to entice someone who wants something that's a little bit more upscale and maybe a little bit more reliable and less maintenance intensive, and slightly more competitive in the segment than the German offerings. And Acura did a lot of benchmarking against Audi and BMW and Mercedes and some of the class leaders. One of the biggest selling points of Acura's product line has always been the ELS sound system. And we have the top of the line 17 speaker 3D sound system here. Let's go in and choose one of our test tracks and give you guys a little sampling. This is recorded in binaural audio. Not a perfect example of what this thing actually sounds like in real life, but hopefully it'll give you guys just a little bit of a taste. The sound quality is incredible. This blows everything else in the segment out of the water, and at kind of any price point, this is one of the best in-car audio systems out there. listen to this with good quality source material, the sound quality is just incredible. You've never heard anything like it in a car. I remember when Acura launched the RDX, they took us out to Nashville, and they had us listen to a live studio recording. Then we listened to the studio's sound system, and then we listened to that same recording in the RDX. And the system in this TLX is equally impressive. It's really amazing. It's quite an experience. You combine that with the way the rest of this car drives and feels, this is a really nice offering. It's a compelling option that I hope it will start to sway some people back from SUVs and crossovers back into the sedan market, because it really does encapsulate the great parts and the great advantages of driving a sedan over a crossover SUV. And with that, Acura has really nailed it. So super, pretty top marks for this TLX on first impressions. Again, I really only spent an hour with this thing, but right off the bat, I'm very impressed. I would say the high points here, the big one for me in this type of a vehicle, this luxury sedan, mid-size luxury sedan segment, is usability. Man, the stuff from BMW and Mercedes is awesome, but it's so freaking complicated to use. And this is not as distracting, it's not as complicated. You get a lot of the features and the amenities and the stuff, the tech, but you don't feel like you're going to crash into something while you're using it, or that it's just too much. It's very manageable, and it's a familiar place. Immediately I got into this TLX and I was able to use everything. I kind of knew intuitively where the buttons and settings and everything were. So there's something to be said about that. But from a performance standpoint, I think this is going to be more than adequate for most buyers. Really, if you want something that's a higher performance option, hold out for the Type S that's coming out in the spring. I think that's going to be a really impressive offering. In my mind, this new TLX has kind of put Acura back on the map in this segment. And whereas, something that, yes, it was always a good offering if you wanted something a little bit more reliable, and but those Accord roots were always in the background. And I think the fact that this is on a new platform, they've really done a lot of specific and specialized tuning to this chassis and to this vehicle. It makes it a really nice offering. We're going to end this with pink mirrors because it's been a while. We'll bring it back. Alright guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully we can get some more extended seat time in the TLX here soon. But on first impressions, this is quite an impressive sedan. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.